Welcome back and thank you for staying with Morning Express. Apologies for that quick break that we had to take, but we're back stronger than ever, just highlighting the latest developments around mental health and the debate surrounding it. Just recently, we've seen that particular story of what happened to the young police couple where one of them took the partner's life and ended up taking his own life later on. Quite an unfortunate turn of events, which sort of paints a clear picture of the mental health plight in the country. Just to rebound on what the CS for Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, mentioned after this particular story that we aired earlier on broke, he just said he's deeply pained by the tragic incident and actually saying it's a rude awakening on the psychosocial challenges amongst our young officers that we have no choice but to now pay greater attention. So we'll use this story to actually rebound on the bigger topic on mental health, not just to young police officers, but to the young individuals back at home who might be affected in one way or the other and are seeking for a way out. So joining us in studio to help us deliberate on these matters, I'm joined by Jane Gasheru, who's a counselor and trainer and facilitator, but she definitely goes as a counseling psychologist. Many thanks for your time and good morning. We're also joined via way of Zoom, Dr. Susan Gitao, who's a counseling psychologist and lecturer at African Nazarene University, as well as Onyango Otieno, who's a mental health advocate. Gentlemen and lady, good morning and many thanks for your time. I'd like us to rebound on that particular unfortunate story where we just highlighted the tragic events that took place right before the young couple took their lives. And I'd like to begin with you, Jane Gasheru, right here in studio. What do you make in terms of the plight of this particular police officer? In one way or the other, it sort of points a bigger picture to the question of how to deal with rejection. What say you about this?
Thank you very much, Jesse, for having me. So, yeah, I think it's a worrying trend that we are seeing right now. And I think its association with COVID is, of course, the fact that right now a lot of people are having a lot of issues to deal with. Maybe problems at work. And these problems at work eventually are taken out on the people that this person is living with. So you can imagine someone who's already stressed, probably because of the economic strains that they are experiencing right now. And then their relationship is not working either. And we are living in a season where now it's impossible for people to use work as an escape as we used to before, because then you cannot be as busy as you are. I mean, you have to be home by 8 p.m. And then after that, it means you have to interact with these people that you haven't been interacting with for quite a number of years, adequately, that is. So it gives a lot of time for people to have conflicts. And this person who is now getting to a point where they cannot deal with rejection is probably also struggling with other psychological issues. Like maybe for some people it's loss of income. This police officer may not have lost his job, but maybe could also have been suffering or maybe experiencing what we are calling economic strain as a result of the current circumstances. So this just further escalates the issue, and so the person does not have coping mechanisms or coping skills to now deal with the problem at hand.
Okay, so let's talk about coping mechanisms. Onyango Otieno, your quick take on that particular unfortunate turn of events, but even as you talk to us, perhaps highlight the need to relook at societal values. I mean, family does play a key role in terms of support in one way or the other, but with the recent developments around the pandemic, not everyone is accessible right now, and it's a reality we have to live in. Talk to us about this. What's your take?
Well, I'm going to put some light into the gender angle of the situation at hand.
Okay.
I have done some work with some trauma healing work with Kenya Police and GSU and the DCI. And in those healing workshops, they come up with stories that let you know that their working conditions are not very safe for them, and that they most of them are really struggling with understanding or coping with their own emotions, right? Also because of the recruitment process to be a police officer in this country is emotionally exhausting. It's almost like you're alienated from feeling, right? And now the gender aspect is the fact that a lot of these cases have been happening. Most of them are not as reported as this one. Maybe this one was very much highlighted because the officer was attached to the CS, Matiang'i. But there is a deeper problem with our security services in this country, where many officers, the kind of lives they're living, make it very difficult for them to be healthy people. Now, in the gender side, most of these suicide cases again come from men or male officers who end up killing their spouses, killing their children, and eventually killing themselves. So there has to be a deeper conversation, according to me, even beyond family or social values. We also have to look at the social well-being of our society and the kind of underlying issues most of us are battling with that end up informing our behavior sometimes or our unhealthy coping mechanisms. So there's a lot to talk about, and I'm glad this conversation is happening.
Okay, that's quite proper. Dr. Susan Gitau, he talks about the social well-being and underlying issues, perhaps pointing a picture to post-traumatic stress disorder, commonly known as PTSD. It might not be the case here, but this might actually lead to a mental health breakdown in one way or the other. Kindly highlight what revolves around PTSD, even as we talk about the triggers and the underlying conditions.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And you're very right. And I'm very happy that Onyango has worked with security officers and understood that they don't operate like any other probably working or career people. One of the things that I understand and I have also learned about, because I have worked with the GSU, I have worked with the administration police, I have worked with a lot with the Kenya Defense Forces, is that they go through a lot of traumatic incidences. And they will tell you the truth. When they are free with you, they tell you, when I joined training, and this is a global practice, you cannot be told what is going to happen during training, otherwise you'd run away and probably never achieve your career dreams. And some of them really want to be police officers and military officers. But they are never taught some of the things that they are going to encounter. Like some police officers say, nobody taught us that one time I will be called to go and pick a dead body from the road. And the truth remains that we are all human beings. We all have one brain, and this brain is divided into two. And when it comes to incidences that make you respond in a helpless manner, hopeless manner, you respond in horror, you fear for your life, that automatically traumatizes you. And when we are stressed, because we know about normal stress, one of the responses that we know is either you run away, you take flight, or you fight, or you want to combat the situation that you are in. And the other one is that you freeze. And most of the time when you respond helplessly, hopelessly, and in horror, you freeze. And when you freeze, this is very critical. And most people don't know. Like when you quarrel a child, you quarrel your spouse, and they're just looking at you, they are not saying anything, they have frozen. And that automatically is the entry of trauma. And what I have found about police officers is that everybody expects them to be very strong at home, in the society. It's like they are not human beings. But the brain does not operate that way. When the brain is under very high stress levels, it does not choose who you are. It will not choose whether you are a minister, you are the president, you are the chancellor. It does not choose. And one of the most unfortunate things, because trauma can happen any day, We have been traumatized, some of us as counselors, but we have learned how to cope and how to heal and how to recover. But who thinks about the police officers in a very organized way? I know there are a few organizations that have tried to input something. I know I have done my little bit, and one retired SSP Kanyeki, he's retired from administration police. We have done a lot of work actually with the administration police. Right. And it's pushing and pushing. So let me just finish. One of the things that I want to say is that all police officers, all military officers, anytime they go out for a mission, they need to be put together in a small meeting that we call debriefing, so that they can empty immediately what could have tortured their minds, because the brain will keep what is not safe, and when it is touched, because it has not been dealt with, you are going to see people doing what you've seen. Otherwise, that's why he had to shoot himself, because immediately realizing, what have I done? Do I even need to live? And I thank God he did not actually kill the children, because most of them will clear everybody so that there is no trace and it's gone. We need to think about their mental health on a very serious note. And we need to involve civilians. I'm very happy with one training institution at Karen called International Peace Support Training Center, which includes everybody, all of them, anyone in the security force and the civilians. Why? We live with these people in our neighborhoods. Okay. So when these things happen, they also touch us, they also touch our children.
Yeah, and it's quite unfortunate. Jane Gasheru, they say prevention is better than cure. So if you can nip it at the bud, it will be quite proper. She mentioned that stress might be a contributing factor, but it begs the question, is there a difference between stress, depression, anxiety attacks, and how can I tell if someone truly has a mental health problem?
Definitely, there is a huge difference between those. I think you've mentioned about 4. Yeah. Now, stress will usually happen whenever you're faced by circumstances that when you make an assessment of those circumstances, you feel that you are unable to cope. And those circumstances could be anywhere from work situations, it could be relationship issues, it could be your living conditions. When we talk about depression, on the other hand, depression now is an escalation of stress that has not been dealt with. And, what happens is that now the intensity of the symptoms is higher than that of stress, whereby we get people who are unable even to get out of bed on a normal day. Someone has very high feelings of, has feelings of hopelessness, and they feel a lot of helplessness. They cry all the time because of the level of sadness that this person is experiencing. So it basically comes with a very big shift in mood. And this shift in mood then makes the person to feel as though they are in this deep pit. I've had most of my clients describe it as that a cloud, this dark cloud that just comes over my head, at certain times. And then we have what you're now calling the panic attacks, whereby the person feels like they are struggling to breathe, or they feel, you wake up at night, you have these night sweats, and you feel there's a lot of fear surrounding death. The person is constantly thinking of, I'm going to die, should this happen? So there's that, heightened fear around death, around their survival. The person's breathing is affected by it, and that is why you see a lot of people who have panic attacks tend to have problems breathing as well. It's because of the fear that, what is going on in their minds is telling them that they need to now fight for their survival. So a lot of what we have been seeing, there's what we call mental disorders. And then there is stress, which, happens. That means that if you're stressed, then your body has not gotten to that point where you're feeling totally overwhelmed. But mental disorders, what we are describing now, like depression, like the panic attacks, it's a breakdown, really. That usually means that the person cannot be able to probably live like any other average person, in the sense that your work situation is affected, your ability to interact with other people is affected. If you're in school, then it means things cannot be as normal. You cannot continue as normal.
Okay, well noted. We'll definitely come back with this particular conversation. Onyango Otieno, I'll come back with you after this short break, because, we live in a patriarchal society. Opening up, perhaps for men, might be termed as a sign of weakness. one way or the other. So how do we reach to that point where we know I need help, I need to open up, and how exactly do I get this help? Stay with us. We'll be evaluating this and much more after the break. You're watching Morning Express.
Introducing Ushindi Cream